Hello everyone, today is Monday and we are beginning week number 6 of our course. If you have been following the syllabus and the course contents and the planner, you all know that this is the last topic that we will be studying. We're going to study this topic, the argumentative essay, the argumentation genre, and we'll be doing this in week 6 and 7. So we're doing this in a couple of weeks. So we have the last week, week 8, the week in which we're supposed to put together our portfolios and collect all the writing samples. But now let's focus on what we have to do this week and the following week. So I'm going to be recording this video to give you some general guidelines and to help you set up your work as usual. The first thing that you gotta do is, and this is unusual, different from what we had before, I'm not writing the one learning object for you. I'll be giving you the information that I would have included in the learning object in week 7 after you have studied the material yourselves. The first thing that you gotta do is open the planner as usual, and here in the planner you have everything that you gotta do. Is Andrew Lanford's Everyone's an Author, the centrality of argument on pages 373 through 417, and also you have to study in depth the strategies for argumentation. I'm going to send you back to John Langan, which is the classical approach to argumentation and to rhetoric in general, and I'm going to give you a chapter from John Langan's book on argumentation. So you gotta study both together. The first reading that you gotta do is Andrew Lanford's, of course, and which is entertaining and simple, and you have that information here on chapter 4, part 4 of the book. From pages, as I said, 373 through 443. You have it all here. Andrea Lanford understands argumentation as a conversation. He makes terrific emphasis on the dialogical nature of argumentation. The dialogue nature of argumentation is conversational. If in previous genre you have seen, for example, the expository writing was about you, about what you saw in the author, or in the analytical genre in which you made an analysis based on observation, and it was mostly you, what you saw in the text that you analyzed. Here, when it comes to argumentation, you gotta have a conversation for sure. You need to have a conversation with the author that you're reading. You've got to understand the ideas presented by the author. You've got to discuss the ideas presented by the author. So there are strategies like acknowledging differing viewpoints, acknowledging the validity of differing viewpoints as well, using courteous language, rebutting what the author has to say, but it all implies a conversation. So, because the point of argumentation is to have an impact on the reader, and based on arguments that you read. So it's important that you pay attention to the other voice, to what the other person is saying, before you come up with your own artillery, before you come up with your own ideas and your own arguments. So Andrea Lanford studies all that in part 4 of her book. Their book, because it's a group of authors, but she's the main author in the book. So you've got to read her understanding, their understanding of argumentation, to explore, to understand, to find consensus, to make decisions, to convince or persuade others. And this is what argumentation is eventually all about. Considering the position of others, providing your own position, and then trying to make an impact, or trying to have people change their way of thinking by using persuasion, or if at least not trying to make people change their minds, at least reinforce an idea. So this is what argumentation is all about. So Andrew Lanford studies the classical strategies for argumentation, and here she goes hand in hand with what John Langan analyzes in his book. John Langan is more synthetic. If you want to start from Langan first and then read Lanford, that's okay. There's not a problem with that, because they both come together to the fact that when it comes to argumentation, it's not only about rebutting, but it's about listening. So here lies the importance of strategies such as using polite and courteous language, not to be offensive, not to get carried away when you present your arguments. So this is where they both come together, and also an importance of analyzing what the other people say, what the ideas that they present. This is when you acknowledge different viewpoints because they're different from yours, but it's important you analyze what they say before you start rebutting. So when you present an argument, it's convenient that you uncover counter argument first. You have studied for sure counter argumentative essays in which you're having a conversation with the other voice, and so we're not doing anything different here. So Andrea Lanford, in her book, she uncovers all that, and she provides, for example, guidelines to help you analyze the arguments presented by others, something that we've been doing this past week, and also helping you to construct your own argument using strategies. And she analyzes clear arguments and faulty arguments. So she not only presents what you should be doing in your essay, but she recommends things that you should avoid at all costs. So it's important you read carefully Andrea Lanford completely. I'm going to refer briefly to something that she calls the crux of the argument, which is the definition of the argument. Is a few questions that you should ask yourself before writing your argumentative essays. You need to decide what is at stake, what is it that you're proposing, what are the facts of your argument, how can the issue be defined, and how much would people care if you wrote about this topic in particular, or what action should be taken as a result. So this is what she calls the crux or of the argument, or the Stacy theory, which is a simple theory that combines a few questions to help you articulate your argument. So study all this here, and you will see many examples. She finally comes to the classical rhetoric, using persuasion as a way to convince, and then she goes back to the classical antiquity when Aristotle presented arguments and presented ways in which you could be more convincing, and he defined this by making use of appeals: emotional appeals, ethical appeals, logical appeals. So he, in presenting his principles for persuasion, he came up with this model of rhetoric, a model that you were supposed to use if you meant to be more convincing. And so the classical model of argumentation is the one that uses the three appeals, and then you call it ethos, logos, and pathos. So you should study all this in this chapter by Lanford. Finally, he also presents aside from the classical model of argumentation, she presents the other three models most widely recognized by rhetoricians, which are the Tolman model, which is very similar to the classical model. You have the Rogerian model, which is more that relies on common grounds rather than on differences, and you have the invitational model at the end that instead of having a confrontation proposes focusing on commonalities. So you need to study all this to be ready for the last essay, which is the most important essay that you're writing in my class, not because the genre, the argumentative genre is the most important, but because of grade point. This essay is worth like 15% of your final grade, together with another 15% that you will earn after you do some group work next week, a work in which you have to display your argumentative essays. So after all this, I'm sending you back to the agenda, to the planner. You have the planner over here. You need to get acquainted with what you have to do, and then you should be ready for the questions. I will be sending 4 questions on Wednesday about argumentation. Questions that are meant to be discussed in the video conference on Saturday. We have our last video conference on the 23rd, and it would be from 9 till 11 in the morning. We're going to be working with examples. We're going to be discussing your ideas on the genre, and if you have further questions. One last thing that I would like to recommend here is that in the syllabus and content sections in the argumentation part, you have together with the planner, you have one section from John Langan. This is John Langan, Argumentation Behind the Scenes, Part 1 and Part 2, with 3 examples of argumentation and the theory by Langan. And you also have PDF, Here's to Your Health, an example of an argumentative article written by John Dunayer, and you will have to discuss this for the video conference on Saturday. You have another example on Walmart with an argumentative essay dissected clearly with annotations that will help you see the strategy that the author has used. You can use this as a complement. This is complementary material. And also you have here one article by Joanna McKay, 2015 essay that he wrote back then, and which is a very interesting example of the Ptolemy model in use. So together with this, you have to study the language corner and do the exercises that you have been doing in the self-assessment part, and then giving me the reports that you have been giving me so far. So keep it up. This is almost over. We have 3 weeks to go. The last 2 weeks have actual work. Then the last week is to put together your act at the end with the portfolio. Please, if you are in doubt, don't hesitate to contact me again. I'll be here. You know that I'm just one email away from you. Thank you.